Welcome to our continuing series, Questions and Answers for a World in Crisis. Today, Contemplation. Our series began in a small way, but is constantly increasing. And due to the response of many, we continue to share the answers of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother to important topics in the world, in our lives, and in our yoga. From the Mother, November 28th, 1912. The outer life, the activity of each day and each instant, is not the indispensable complement of our hours of meditation and contemplation, and is not the proportion of time given to each the exact image of the proportion which exists between the amount of effort to be made for the preparation and realization for meditation, contemplation. Union is the result obtained. The flower that blooms, the daily activity is the anvil on which all the elements must pass and repass in order to be purified, refined, made supple and ripe for the illumination which contemplation gives to them. Very modestly, we must take advantage of all the minute opportunities offered to knead and purify some of the innumerable elements, to make them supple, to make them impersonal, to teach them forgetfulness of self and abnegation and devotion and kindness and gentleness. And when all these modes of being have become habitual to them, then they are ready to participate in the contemplation and to identify themselves with Thee in the supreme concentration. Question to Mother. Is there a relation, sweet Mother, between concentration and contemplation? Mother. There can always be a relation between everything, but usually one means by contemplation a kind of opening upwards. It is rather a state of passive opening upwards. It is a fairly passive form of aspiration. One makes this movement rather like something opening in an aspiration. But if the contemplation is sufficiently total, it becomes a concentration. Yet it is not necessarily a concentration. From Mother's prayers and meditations. In the calm silence of thy contemplation, O Divine Master, nature is fortified and tempered anew. In the perfect silence of my contemplation, all widens to infinity. And in the perfect peace of that silence, thou appearest in the resplendent glory of thy light. Yesterday afternoon, during those long hours of silent contemplation, I understood at last what is meant by true identification with the object of one's thought. I touched this realization, as it were, not by achieving a mental state, but simply through steadiness and control of thought. I understood that I would need long, very long hours of contemplation to be able to perfect this realization. More from the Mother. When one will completely go over to that side, all speculation will stop, all desire to explain, all desire to deduce, conclude, arrange to all that there will be an end. If one could be simply, be. But for us, I have noticed it, if we do not speak, if we do not think, if we do not decide, we believe we are outside life. And then it is not always the same silence, the silence of the unspoken word. It is not that. It is the silence of the contemplation that is dynamic. Silence of a dynamic contemplation. It is that. A single day spent in contemplation of the path of immortality is worth more than 100 years lived in ignorance of the path of immortality. A single day spent in contemplation of the supreme truth is worth more than 100 years lived in ignorance of the supreme truth. And from Sri Aurobindo, sadhana through meditation. There are two words used in English to express the Indian idea of dhyana, meditation, and contemplation. Meditation means properly the concentration of the mind on a single train of ideas which work out a single subject. Contemplation means regarding mentally a single object, image, idea, so that the knowledge about the object, image, or idea may arise naturally in the mind by force of the concentration. Meditation is the easiest process for the human mind, but the narrowest in its results. Contemplation, more difficult, but greater. Self-observation and liberation from the chains of thought, the most difficult of all, but the widest and greatest in its fruits. One can choose any of them according to one's bent and capacity. The perfect method is to use them all, each in its own place and for its own object. But this would need a fixed faith and firm patience and a great energy of will in the self-application to the yoga. But if you ask me for an absolute answer, then I must say that Brahman is always the best object for meditation or contemplation, and the idea on which the mind should fix is that of God in all in God, and all as God. The mind is a thing that dwells in diffusion, in succession. It can only concentrate on one thing at a time, and when not concentrated, runs from one thing to another very much at random. Therefore, it has to concentrate on a single idea, a single subject of meditation, a single object of contemplation, a single object of will, in order to possess or master it. And this it must do to at least the temporary exclusion of all others. This is the process of concentrated meditation. But a more strenuous method is the fixing of the whole mind in concentration on the essence of the idea only, so as to reach not the thought knowledge or the psychological experience of the subject, but the very essence of the thing behind the idea. In this process, thought ceases and passes into the absorbed or ecstatic contemplation of the object, or by emerging into it in an inner samadhi. Namaste.